Hey everyone, welcome back to Wait It Gets Better. This is episode 60 and today's topic is alcoholism. Today's story time will involve a lot of secondhand accounts of alcoholism. It is common in my family as well as working a job where the employees would come in at 7 a.m. drunk and drink throughout the day, so we'll talk about that. It was really sad to see such young girls doing that, but what they all had in common, including the people in my family, was trauma. So we will see as doing this in doing this topic if there's a correlation between trauma and alcoholism. So let's dive right in. So what is alcoholism? Alcoholism, clinically known as alcohol use disorder, is a chronic relapsing brain disease characterized by an impaired ability to stop and control alcohol use despite adverse social, occupational, or health consequences. It excuse me, jeez. It involves physical dependence, cravings, and tolerance where higher amounts are needed for the same effect. The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, according to them, key aspects of alcoholism, physical and mental dependence. The body requires alcohol to function, leading to withdrawal symptoms, shakes, nausea, seizures when stopping, loss of control, the inability to limit drinking once it begins, often resulting in binge drinking, compulsive behavior, overwhelming urge to consume alcohol despite negative impacts on health, relationships, and work. Then we have brain changes, long term alcohol misuse causes lasting changes in brain structure and function, which perpetuate the addiction. And symptoms and warning signs spending a lot of time drinking and recovering from it, giving up social or work activities to drink, drinking more and longer than intended, increased tolerance needed, needing more time to get drunk, and alcoholism ranges from mid to severe, and treatment often includes a combination of behavioral therapies, medication, and support groups. Alcohol abuse and alcoholism are distinct stages of alcohol related problems. Alcohol abuse is a pattern of excessive drinking causing negative consequences, legal, social, and health without physical dependence. Alcoholism or alcohol use disorder is a chronic severe disease involving physical dependence, cravings, tolerance, and withdrawal. The key difference is dependency. Alcoholics are physically and psychologically dependent on alcohol to function, and those abusing alcohol usually are not. Control. Alcohol abusers often retain some control over their drinking habits, while alcoholics have lost control. Withdrawal. Alcoholics experience physical withdrawal symptoms, shaking, nausea, when quitting, which is generally not present in abusers. Progression. Alcohol abuse is often considered an early stage that, if left untreated, can progress into the more severe disease of alcoholism. So, both conditions are serious and require intervention, but treatment for alcoholism often requires professional detox, while behavioral therapy is often sufficient for abuse. So now let's get into some story time. When I worked at the deli that I often talk about, a majority of the girls I worked with drank from the moment they came in at 7 a.m. to the moment they left, and then on and on with throughout the day, which is really sad because they were young. They were way younger than me. Like at the time I was working there, I was in my 30s, and they were younger in their early 20s. And they would come in completely drunk. They would have water bottles full of alcohol. And it was just really sad. But what they all had in common was trauma, from what I've learned. And I just remember, like, one of them, I was trying to talk to her as she was loading cups into the cabinet at work. And I was talking to her in mid sentence. She stopped our conversation and just got really confused. And she was like, "What?" And obviously, me and my manager looked at each other and were like, "Yeah, that is the alcohol." And it was just really sad because she was just turning 20 at that point, or 21 or 20 at that point. So it was just really sad. And then the other girl, um, she would do the same thing, and she often let it interfere with her work or other people's work, where she would get really obnoxious, start acting erratic, like throwing things and just acting really, really bizarre. And it often interfered with my work as the cashier, where like I would be talking to a customer and she would start shouting really loud. It was like bad for business. And she oftentimes, like, I remember one time, I wasn't there that day, but one time she passed out drunk with like food in her hand and she was eating. And the owner's mom came in and she was like, "That's it. We need to set a rule. No eating on the clock, no eating behind the counters. You got to go out, clock out, and eat." Like, it was just this whole thing. And it was just really sad to see such young girls exhibiting such behavior. But, like, and I just remember, like, one of them, the one that I was talking about that got confused mid-sentence while I was talking to her, she did end up becoming one of my best friends. We're not friends anymore, and I've spoken about that previously. Like, we were best friends. We were like frickin' frack, but she had her own issues, and I had my own things going on, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And she was an alcoholic, and I just remember, like, she came over one day, we were, like, hanging out in my backyard getting ready to smoke, and my dad comes out and he goes, "You need to stop drinking." I did not drink like that with her. It was just her, but she would drink like a full bottle a day, and my dad came out that one day and he's like, "You need to stop drinking." He's like, "My dad was an alcoholic," and like he just went on and on. And she got so offended. And I just remember, like, I sided with my dad on that. I'm like, you know what? Like, he's witnessed it, he's experienced it, he's lived with an alcoholic. His father was an alcoholic, and my grandfather's siblings were all alcoholics. God rest their souls. They were human beings, just like the rest of us, but they had their demons. And um, I just know my dad was coming from a place of concern. He came from a place of concern because at the time, she was my best friend. I think he was just really concerned. He would often like take her home from work sometimes when she worked there. He would take her home, and she only lived maybe like a town away. And I just remember he would tell me when she got out of the car, he's like, "She reeks of alcohol." Like, it was so sad. I did feel bad for her, but you know what? I hope she's doing well. I hope she got the help she needed. But like I do notice between my dad's father, where he was coming from a place of concern, along with these two girls I just spoke about, a lot of them had trauma in common. I won't get into specifics. I won't like air their dirty laundry in that aspect. As relevancy to the topic, we will talk about trauma and how it plays a key role in people becoming alcoholics. So let's talk about it. So I asked, does trauma and alcoholism correlate? And this is what it said. It said, yes, trauma and alcoholism are strongly correlated, with research showing that individuals with PTSD are significantly more likely to develop alcohol use disorders. This connection is often driven by self-medication, where survivors use alcohol to cope with painful memories, anxiety, and insomnia. Early childhood trauma specifically is linked to higher risk of developing AUD later in life. Key connections and findings. High co-occurrence. Approximately 40% of individuals diagnosed with PTSD also meet the criteria for an alcohol use disorder. Self-medication hypothesis. People often use alcohol to numb trauma-related symptoms such as flashbacks, avoidance, and emotional numbness. The impact of childhood trauma. There is a direct link between severity of childhood abuse or neglect and the severity of adult alcohol addiction. Biological changes. Trauma can cause long-term structural changes in the brain and nervous system, increasing vulnerability to addiction. The cycle of addiction. While alcohol may provide temporary relief, it often exacerbates PTSD symptoms like anxiety and depression, creating a dangerous worsening cycle. Common types of trauma linked to AUD: childhood abuse or neglect, assaultive violence, unexpected loss, combat-related trauma, and treatment often requires addressing both the trauma and the addiction simultaneously to be effective. Now, I know it runs on both sides of my family, my mom's brother included. He would drink like a pack of beer in one night, and his wife, she had cirrhosis of the liver, and then after that, she continued to drink heavily. I just remember like going to visit them in Pennsylvania, and after she was dealing with her cirrhosis diagnosis and what was going on with her, I remember like we were sitting there talking to him, catching up, my uncle, my sister, and my mom, and she goes, "Oh, I'm gonna go out real quick. I'm gonna go somewhere." And she came home, and she was like so defensive. She came home with like a few tall boys, and like they were in the bag, and she was like denying it. And then I just know my uncle, before she got home, was like, "Don't even say anything to her, like blah blah blah, she'll get really really mad." And it's just sad to see that. And I know like at the time my uncle was dealing with cancer, but his wife was like, she had cirrhosis of the liver and she was continuing to drink. Is unfortunate, but like it does run in my family. My uncle had it, his wife, but she's not related to me. She's related to me by marriage, but my uncle has it. So I asked, is it genetic? Because my dad's side had it, my mom's side had it. But I am the type of person, like, I can go out to dinner and I can absolutely limit myself. Like, I'll have one drink, that's it. I do know, like a few years ago, I did hang out with a bunch of people. We would drink 3 days, like 3 or 4 days a week, some more than others. But like now I'm at a point in my life where like I'll have one drink at dinner, that's it. If given the opportunity to drink like that again, I don't think I would, because I got to a point where I didn't like how it made me feel. Like the recovery time, I'm older now, and I was older than those people at the time. I just know like drinking like that is not something that I'm gonna set my sights on, especially at this point in my life. The things that I want to accomplish, like I don't think it would be very smart of me to like live a kind of life like that ever again. But like I said, that has nothing to do with what we're about to talk about. What we're about to talk about right now is if it's genetic. But yes, alcoholism use disorder is genetic. It has a genetic, excuse me, a significant genetic component, with research estimating that genetics account for 40% to 60% of individuals' risk. It is not caused by a single gene, but rather a complex interplay of multiple genes, environmental factors, and behavioral traits that affect alcohol metabolism and brain reward pathways. Key genetic risk factors: family history. Children of alcoholics are 4 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence than the general population. Now, I know my dad and my mom both have a family history of it, but my dad oftentimes has said, my dad was like, I could never, the way my father was, I could never be that way for my kids, because it affected my dad's alcoholism affected him in many different ways, like his upbringing, his childhood. And he did oftentimes say, like, you know, I didn't like how my dad acted when he was drunk. And, clearly my dad has a little bit of trauma from that, which kind of gives you guys a little bit of a background in my dad a little bit. I will talk about it more, but like I said, I'm glad to see that my dad didn't let his history with his father's alcoholism affect him and how he is now as a father. So let's dive back into it. Complex inheritance. AUD is not inherited directly, but rather predisposition to it is inherited, involving genes related to stress, response, impulsivity, and metabolism. I don't know if you guys hear that. My neighbor is vacuuming his car. I'm so sorry. So the environmental impact. Environmental factors such as peer pressure, stress, and early initiation of drinking play a major role in whether genetic susceptibility manifests as a disorder. No single gene. There is no single alcoholism gene. Instead, hundreds of genes may contribute to small amounts of the overall risk. Metabolism and tolerance. Some inherited genetic variations affect how the body breaks down alcohol, influencing tolerance and the risk of addiction. While a genetic predisposition increases the likelihood of developing an alcohol use disorder, it does not guarantee it. A person with a high genetic risk may never develop alcoholism if they do not consume alcohol, highlighting the importance of environmental, behavioral, and lifestyle factors. One thing I will say, the people in my father's family, I never met them. They all passed before I was born, except for my dad's uncle Dan. But his father and his sister, I do hear a lot of great stories about them. They did alcoholism, but like the mama side speak highly of my dad's father. My dad speaks highly of his father, but my dad does give me a little more of like a, a reality of his father. Like, he, as much as my cousins say these great things, my dad's like, well, this is what happened in my childhood. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he was a great person. My cousins speak highly of him. My dad's aunt, people speak highly of my dad. But unfortunately, they struggled, and a lot of it had to do with their childhood and their upbringing. And I know, like, just because these people had these issues doesn't mean they're beings, and they were loved by the people in their family. Unfortunately, that alcoholism got them. And it's sad. I would have loved to have met my grandfather. He died at a young age and I know my dad loved him. He was so loved. I hear from my kids he was a great uncle. My dad's aunt, he loved her. But like I said, a lot of them had their demons, they had their issues they were dealing with. And I just wish more people understood that just because somebody's and they have all these issues going on doesn't take away from the fact that they are human beings and they are loved. So let us talk about health risks of alcohol. Now, alcohol consumption increases the risk of over 40 diseases and injury, causing 95,000 U.S. deaths annually. Major long term risks include cancer, breast, liver, and throat, cardiovascular disease, liver cirrhosis, brain damage, and weakened immunity. Short term risks include injuries, accidents and falls, violence, and alcohol poisoning. Cancer, alcohol is a group 1 carcinogen, significantly increasing risk for mouth, throat, esophagus, liver, colon, and breast cancers. Even low consumption can raise breast cancer risk. Liver disease, chronic heavy consumption leads to fatty liver hepatitis and cirrhosis. Cardiovascular issues, high blood pressure, stroke, arrhythmia, and heart muscle damage are common. Brain and mental health, long-term damage to the brain contributing to dementia, memory problems, anxiety, and depression. Immune system, weakening the immune system, increasing vulnerability to infections, pregnancy and reproductive health, increased risk of miscarriage, birth, and full spectrum causes sexual dysfunction and infertility, acute injuries and alcohol, high levels of intoxication, accidents, falls, burns, drowning, suicide, and violence. According to the World Health Organization, there is no safe amount of alcohol consumption that does not affect health. Risks begin from the very first drink. Now, here are the stages of alcohol. Alcohol use disorder is progressive disease typically divided into 4 stages: pre-alcoholism, experimentational, social, early stage, increased tolerance, middle stage, dependency, physical impacts, and the end stage, severe addiction and health crisis. It progresses from using alcohol for stress relief to compulsive, uncontrolled drinking that severely impacts health and daily functioning. Alcoholism are stage 1, pre-alcoholism, experimentation, and social drinking. Alcohol is used to cope with stress, trauma, or emotional pain. Drinking is primarily social but increases in frequency. Tolerance starts to build. The stage 2, the drinking problem stage, the early stage, problem drinking. Drinking becomes a regular habit to cope with negative emotions. Increased consumption leads to blackouts, memory lapses. Secretive or solo drinking may begin. The dependence, the middle stage, stage 3. Physically relying on alcohol to feel normal or to avoid withdrawal symptoms, sweating, tremors, anxiety. Significant noticeable impacts on work and consistent of control over the amount consumed. And stage 4, the stage, health issues. Complete loss of control over consumption. Life revolves around alcohol. And we have the severe and physical mental health issues, including liver disease, cirrhosis, cancer, and cognitive damage. Withdrawal symptoms are severe and potentially dangerous without medical supervision. Now, key indicators of progression: increased tolerance, needing more alcohol to achieve the same effect. Physical dependence, experiencing withdrawal symptoms when not drinking, escaping problems, using alcohol to manage emotions, and ignoring consequences. Continuing to drink despite damaged relationships, issues, and legal troubles. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol, resources like SAMHSA National Helpline 1-800-662-HELP offer 24/7 support. Now, here's how alcoholism affects the brain. Alcoholism causes significant, often irreversible brain damage by shrinking brain cells, decreasing brain volume, particularly in the frontal lobes, hippocampus, and the cerebellum, and disrupting neurotransmitters. Chronic abuse impairs memory, judgment, and motor control, while severe cases can lead to dementia, stroke. I don't know what this says, but it's Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. I am sorry if I butchered that. I didn't do that purposely. A permanent amnesia disorder. So we have key effects on the brain: structural damage and shrinkage. Long-term alcohol use leads to widespread visible shrinkage of the brain tissue, impacting gray and white matter, cognitive decline. Damage to the frontal lobes reduces executive functions like decision making, planning, and impulse control. Memory impairment: the hippocampus is severely affected, leading to difficulties in forming new memories and potential for blackouts. And issues: damage to the cerebellum affects balance, coordination, and working. Neurotransmitter imbalance: alcohol disrupts the delicate imbalance of chemicals necessary for communication between brain cells, causing slow reflexes and cognitive decline. Now, serious neurological conditions: the Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, a severe, often permanent brain disorder caused by thiamine, a vitamin B1 deficiency, leading to extreme confusion, memory loss, and eye movement issues. Alcohol-related dementia: chronic drinking can lead to premature dementia characterized by significant memory loss and reduced mental capability. And then we have the reversibility and recovery. While some damage is permanent, stopping alcohol consumption can allow the brain to partially repair itself. Cognitive function and structural damage can show improvement or reversal within weeks to a year after quitting. Now, areas affected: the frontal lobes and personality, judgment, and emotional control, the hippocampus, memory formation, the cerebellum, movement and coordination, brain cells like neurons. Chronic use can damage the ends of neurons. Now, here's how alcoholism can affect relationships. Now, I have a feeling like this is going to have a lot of maybe this is just my thought. I feel like this is going to have some biased information. We'll see. Alcohol negatively impacts relationships by lowering inhibitions, triggering conflict, and eroding trust through broken promises and secrecy. Heavy drinking causes emotional responsibility, physical or emotional abuse. It is a major factor in marital distress. 100%. My grandma, one of the main reasons we together was because of his alcoholism. It's sad. It's sad. They loved each other. And according to my cousins and my dad, he was a great man. I feel like my grandma got to a point where she couldn't take it anymore. And unfortunately, it was a cause for their divorce. And it's sad. Like I said, he was a human being, but had a lot of issues. And I feel like back during the time where that was all going on, I hang on. Okay, sorry, my microphone timed out for a minute. Getting back to the story. So my grandma divorced my grandfather because he was an alcoholic. And like I said, he was a human being who had a lot of issues, and mental health back in those days during my dad's childhood, throughout his teen years, it wasn't something that was handled the way it is now. And I just wish he was around and would have gotten the help that he needed. But unfortunately, like, it affected his marriage, it affected his relationship with his kids. Even though my dad and my aunt loved my grandfather, my dad did oftentimes say, like, there was times where, like, he just wished that they would just get divorced because it was so bad. But like I said, I'm gonna keep saying this. My grandfather was loved. He was a great person, but he had, like I said, he had his issues. He had his things that he was dealing with, and it was just horrible. It was just horrible how mental health wasn't dealt with the way it is now back then. But let's get back into it. Now, the key components of alcohol on relationships: communication breakdowns and conflict. Alcohol increases the likelihood of heated arguments, poor decision making, and emotional outbursts. Erosion of trust, dishonesty regarding drinking habits, secretiveness, and broken promises. Missed events, financial irresponsibility damage the foundation of a relationship. Emotional and physical distance. The drinking partner may become emotionally detached, leading to feelings of loneliness, neglect, and abandonment in the sober partner. Safety and abuse. There is a high correlation between alcohol misuse and increased risk of domestic violence, both physical and verbal. Increased responsibilities on one partner. The sober partner often has to take more responsibilities, leading to the resentment and codependent dynamic. And intimacy issues. Alcohol can impair sexual functioning, reducing libido, or causing issues with arousal and long-term consequences. If left unaddressed, alcohol-related problems can lead to separation, divorce, and lasting emotional trauma that may not be repairable even after sobriety is achieved. Now, alcohol recovery options range from medically supervised detox and inpatient rehab to outpatient counseling and support groups like AA. Effective treatments include behavioral therapy, CBT, motivational enhancement. We have medications, naltrexone, prostate, and disolif. I don't even know how to say these, to manage cravings and withdrawal. So treatment for recovery options, medical detoxification, a 2 to 7 day, often inpatient program to safely manage withdrawal symptoms, residential inpatient treatment, 24-hour care in a structured environment for severe dependency, outpatient treatment, counseling, therapy, or medication management, intensive outpatient or partial hospitalization. Behavioral therapy is cognitive behavioral therapy focused on replacing negative thoughts and behaviors. Motivational enhancement therapy builds motivation to change drinking habits, and family couples counseling involves loved ones in the recovery process. Medications, naltrexone reduces cravings. A camp prostate, excuse me, oh my god. It helps maintain abstinence, and disulfiram. It causes unpleasant physical reactions if alcohol is consumed. No support groups. Alcoholics Anonymous, a 12-step peer-led program. Non-12-step groups, alternatives such as Smart Recovery and recovery coaching and management. Ongoing support, including monitoring and sober living environments. The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism is NIAAA.gov. Recovery approaches abstinence recommended for severe dependence, focusing on stopping alcohol use completely in moderation. Techniques like limiting alcohol at home, sipping slowly, and tracking consumption. For immediate confidential support, you can call SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-4357. Now, approaching a loved one about possible alcohol use disorder can be difficult and emotional. The goal is to express concern and support, not to blame or force them into change. A calm and compassionate approach often works best. Choose the right time. Timing definitely does matter. Try to talk when they're sober, you are both calm and not arguing, and you have privacy and enough time to talk. Avoid bringing it up during or right after they've been drinking. Speak from concern, not judgment. Use I statements instead of accusations. Examples: I'm really worried about you, or I've noticed you seem to be struggling lately, or I care about you and I want to support you. Avoid statements like you're ruining your life, or you're an alcoholic. Those can make people defensive. So the right approach is 100%, share specific observations. Instead of general accusations, mention what you've noticed. I noticed you've been drinking every night. You seem really sick the last time after drinking. I'm worried because it seems like alcohol is affecting your health. Focus on behavior and impact, not character, and listen without interrupting. Let them speak. They may deny the problem, become defensive, feel ashamed, or open up. Try to listen calmly, even if the response is difficult. Offer support and resources. Let them know they don't have to face it alone. You might say, if you ever want help finding support, I'm here. We could look into counseling or meetings together. Resources include Alcoholics Anonymous, Smart Recovery, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, a treatment helpline, and set healthy boundaries. Supporting someone does not mean enabling harmful behavior. Healthy boundaries might include not covering up for them, not giving them money for alcohol, and protecting your own well-being. Support groups like Al-Anon family groups can help loved ones learn these skills. Now, be prepared for resistance. Many people with addiction struggle to acknowledge it at first. Important things to remember: you cannot force someone into recovery. Change often takes time, and your conversation may plant the seed for later. So, example conversation, you can approach it like this: I want to talk about something because I care about you. I've noticed alcohol seems to be causing some problems lately, and it worries me. I'm not here to judge you. I just want to support you if you ever want help. That's a great way to go about it. And signs somebody may have a drinking problem. Not everyone with alcoholism drinks every day. These are some common warning signs. Behavioral signs: drinking more longer, drinking more or longer than intended, difficulty cutting down or stopping, spending a lot of time drinking or recovering from drinking, continuing to drink despite relationship or work problems. The physical signs: increased tolerance, needing more alcohol to feel effects, withdrawal symptoms. When not drinking, they're shaking, sweating, or nausea, frequent hangovers, emotional or lifestyle signs, irritability or mood swings, hiding or lying about the drinking, losing interest in hobbies or responsibilities, and what not to say to somebody struggling with alcoholism. Avoid saying, just stop drinking. You're ruining everything. You're acting like an alcoholic. Other people have it worse. If you loved us, you would stop, or you just need more willpower. Instead, focus on care, concern, and support. I'm worried about you and I care about your health. You don't have to deal with this alone. If you ever want help, I'm here. How to do an intervention safely. An intervention can help encourage someone to seek help, but it should be done carefully. Plan ahead. Often, interventions work best with guidance from an addiction professional. Gather in a small group, include people who care about the person, can stay calm, and won't shame or attack them. Share personal concerns. Each person explains how the drinking has affected them, why they want the person to get help, and offer clear treatment options. Examples include Alcoholics Anonymous, Smart Recovery treatment programs found through Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, and set boundaries. For example, no longer covering up for their drinking and protecting your own well-being. Now, alcohol relapse rates are high, with 40 to 60% of individuals in recovery experiencing relapse. The risk is the highest the first year, particularly within the first 6 months. However, long-term abstinence improves with time, and after 5 years of sobriety, the risk of relapse drops to less than 15%. The key alcohol relapse statistics: initial risk: 90% of people who complete treatment may experience at least one mild relapse. According to Carrera Treatment Wellness and Spa, year one, approximately 80% of relapses occur in the first year of sobriety. Short term, roughly 2/3 of individuals treated for alcohol use disorder relapse within 6 months, says the National Institute of Health. And long term improvement: after 5 years of sobriety, the risk of relapse drops to below 15% from the Recovery Village. Common relapse triggers include emotional stress, intense positive or negative emotions, social pressure, high risk situations like parties or being around people who drink, environmental cues, places, people, or situations associated with past drinking, and ineffective coping, inability to manage cravings, or mental health issues. Relapse is often part of the recovery process, not a sign of failure, and is similar in frequency to other chronic illnesses like hypertension or asthma, according to Carrara Treatment Wellness and Spa. Now, here are some resources for alcoholism. Now, national helplines, 24/7 confidential. The national helplines, 24/7 confidential support, the substance abuse and health services. The national helpline is 1-800-662-4357. My niece is calling me. I can't answer. Sorry, honey. I'll call her back. Okay, let me get back to this. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the national helpline, the number is 1-800-662-4357, a free confidential treatment referral service available 24/7 in English and Spanish, helps people find detox, rehab, and counseling programs. The 988 and Crisis Lifeline. Call or text 988 for emotional distress, crisis, and substance use struggles. Support groups. These provide peer support and community, which can be powerful in recovery. Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the most well-known recovery groups, uses 12-step model, free meetings worldwide and in-person and online. We have Smart Recovery, science-based recovery approach, focuses on self-empowerment and coping skills. Women for Sobriety, support group specifically for women in recovery. Life Ring Secular Recovery, peer support without religious components. And we have some resources for families and loved ones. We have Al-Anon family groups. It supports support meetings for families and friends of alcoholics, adult children of alcoholics, support for adults raised in homes affected by alcoholism. And treatment and professional help, these are options: detox programs with medical supervision during withdrawal, inpatient rehab, live-in treatment programs, outpatient programs, therapy and treatment while living at home, and addiction counseling or therapy. Medication-assisted treatment prescribed by doctors is a good place for treatment programs is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, they have a treatment locator, and helpful apps. I Am Sober. It tracks sobriety milestones and motivation. Sober Grid, Sober Social Network and Peer Support. And Meeting Guide. It helps find nearby AA meetings. Now, if you're struggling with alcohol, you're not weak and you're not alone. Millions of people have been there and have been where you are and found recovery and support. And so many well-known public figures have openly shared their struggles with alcohol use disorder, which can help reduce the stigma and remind people that addiction can affect anyone. So let's dive into it. So we have Robert Downey Jr., struggled with alcohol and drug addiction in the 1990s and early 2000s. After his treatment and recovery, he rebuilt his career and became widely known for starring in Iron Man films. Bradley Cooper has spoken openly about quitting alcohol in his late 20s after realizing it was affecting his life and career. We have Ben Affleck. He has discussed his long-term battle with alcoholism and has gone to rehab multiple times while being open about recovery. We have Drew Barrymore, experienced substance abuse and alcoholism at a very young age and entered rehab as a child actor. We have Elton John, struggled with alcohol and drugs in the 90s and 70s, the 70s and 80s, he became sober in 1990 and has been an advocate for recovery ever since. We have Eric Clapton, battled severe alcoholism in the 1970s and later became sober, even helping found the addiction treatment centers. And Eminem has spoken about addiction struggles and his recovery journey. Comedians Robin Williams had periods of alcoholism in his early career and later sought treatment and sobriety. Matthew Perry, known for Friends, he spoke openly about addiction and recovery and became a major advocate for addiction treatment. We have writers like Stephen King. The famous horror author has talked about severe alcoholism and substance abuse during parts of his career before becoming sober. Now, these stories remind us that alcoholism can affect anyone, and they also show that recovery and rebuilding their life is possible. Now, things that people with alcoholism wish their loved ones knew. I thought this was really interesting when I was doing my research, so let's dive into it. Things that they wish their loved ones knew. I didn't plan on becoming addicted. Most people do not start drinking with the intention of developing an addiction. Over time, alcohol can change brain chemistry and behavior. Shame often makes it harder to stop. Many people struggling with alcoholism already feel deep guilt and shame. Judgment or criticism can sometimes make those feelings worse and push them further into drinking. Addiction is not about weak willpower. Alcohol addiction is a complex medical and psychological condition that affects how the brain processes reward, stress, and self-control. Recovery is possible, but it can take time. Recovery rarely happens overnight. Many people experience setbacks before long-term recovery, and support means more than pressure. Encouragement, patience, and compassion often help more than ultimatums or constant criticism. And I may need professional help. Support groups and treatment programs make a big difference, such as Alcoholics Anonymous, Smart Recovery treatment programs through Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration. Your well-being matters too. Families are deeply affected by alcoholism. Many people in recovery say they want their loved ones to seek support as well. Groups like Al-Anon family groups can help families learn how to cope and set healthy boundaries. If you're struggling with alcohol, or if you love someone who is, remember, this addiction does not mean someone is broken or beyond help. Recovery is possible, support exists, and no one has to face this alone. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can offer each other is compassion. Now, why people with alcoholism often continue to drink even when they want to stop? Changes in the brain. Alcohol affects the brain's reward system, which involves neurotransmitter dopamine. When someone drinks, the brain releases dopamine. This creates feelings of pleasure or relief. Over time, the brain can start to crave alcohol to feel normal, making it very hard to stop. The physical dependence. With long-term drinking, the body can become dependent on alcohol. Stopping suddenly can cause withdrawal symptoms such as anxiety, shaking, sweating, nausea, and insomnia. In severe cases, withdrawal can lead to delirium tremens, which is a dangerous medical condition. Because of this, some people keep drinking just to avoid feeling sick. Alcohol is a coping mechanism. Many people use alcohol to cope with stress, trauma, depression, and anxiety. For some people, alcohol is temporarily numbs emotional pain, even though it creates a bigger problem later. Habit and environment. Drinking can become tied to daily routines or environments, social events, stressful work days, certain friends or places. These triggers can create strong urges to drink. And then we have shame and stigma. Feeling ashamed can make it harder to ask for help. Some people think people will judge me. I should be able to fix this myself. This stigma can keep people stuck in silence. And helpful support options. Many people recover with support from systems such as Alcoholics Anonymous, Smart Recovery, and treatment programs through substance abuse and mental health services. Now, one of the biggest myths about alcoholism is that people could stop if they tried harder. In reality, alcohol changes the brain's reward system, and I just spoke about this, but let's talk about the myths when it comes to alcoholism. Alcoholism is a chronic, often hereditary brain disease, not a simple failure of willpower or a choice. Myth is that only daily drinkers are alcoholics. The reality is that binge or weekend drinkers can also have severe disorder. Recovery is possible, but complete lifelong abstinence is generally required, as returning to moderate drinking is impossible for addicts. Now, here's some myths about alcoholism. Myth is that alcohol. Excuse me, I need some water. Now, I'll tell you, I'm feeling better than I was last week, but I still have a little bit of a lingering thing going on, but I brought water this time. I was prepared. So, the myth is that alcoholism is a choice and a weakness. The truth is that it is the disease that alters the brain function. The myth is that you must drink daily. The truth is that alcoholics may be binge drinkers or weekend drinkers. The myth is that you can sober up with cold showers or coffee. The truth is that only time metabolizes alcohol. The myth is that beer is safer than liquor. Truth is that alcohol content is what matters. One 12-ounce beer equals 1.5 ounces of liquor. And a myth is that alcoholics can learn to drink in moderation. And the truth is that once addicted, people can safely return to drinking. And the myth is that it's just a phase. And the truth is that without treatment, it is progressive, potentially fatal condition. Misconceptions about treatment and recovery. The myth is that tough love works. The truth is that shame and isolation rarely help. Compassion and treatment are more effective. And the myth is that you can stop on your own. The truth is that alcoholism usually requires professional treatment, support, and sometimes medical detoxification. Now, here's my favorite part. The way I end most of the shows before giving, my shout outs and my thank yous. So here are the affirmations. Affirmations for people struggling with alcoholism. I am more than my struggles with alcohol. I deserve compassion, patience, and understanding. Every step toward healing counts, no matter how small. I'm allowed to ask for help. My life has value and meaning. I can learn healthier ways to cope with pain and stress. My past does not define my future. I am worthy of support and recovery. I am strong enough to face today. Progress matters more than perfection. I can take this one moment at a time, and I deserve peaceful and healthy life. Now, affirmations for people in recovery. I am proud of the progress I am making. Every sober day is an accomplishment. I am building a healthier life for myself. My strength grows every day. I trust myself to make better choices. Recovery is a journey, and I am moving forward. I am learning to care for myself in new ways. I am resilient and capable of change. My future is brighter than my past. I deserve the freedom that sobriety brings. I celebrate every step forward in my recovery. I am becoming the person I want to be. Here's some affirmations for families and loved ones of alcoholics. I deserve support and care too. I am not responsible for someone else's addiction. My feelings are valid and important. I'm allowed to set healthy boundaries. I deserve peace and stability in my life. I can support my loved one without losing myself. I am strong enough to navigate this challenge. I deserve understanding and compassion. I can seek help and support when I need it. I am not alone in this experience. My well being matters. I am doing the best I can. And some short affirmations for difficult moments. These are great for repeating during cravings or emotional moments. This feeling will pass. I am stronger than this urge. I can get through this moment. I choose to care for myself today. I am not alone. I deserve healing. I can take things one moment at a time. Now, if you're listening today and struggling with alcohol, take a moment with me, breathe in slowly and breathe out. Remind yourself, I am more than my struggles. I deserve compassion and support. Recovery may not be easy, but it is possible. I can take this one moment, 1 hour, and one day at a time. My life has value. My story is not over, and healing is possible, and I'm worthy of it. Now, thank you guys for listening. I hope this episode helped. Next episode, next Friday, will be about cheating and mental health. So I'll be back next Friday. Once again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for the support. I love you guys. Whoever's listening, I love you guys. Shout out to those who listen. You guys are great. Like, this is my outlet. I found my purpose in doing this, and there's more to come. I will not stop until I feel it is time to give this up. I love helping people. I hope this is helping people. So thank you guys for listening. If you or anyone you know is struggling, you can text HOME to 741-741, the crisis text line, for a free confidential conversation with a trained counselor any time of day. Text or call 988 or use the chat function at 988lifeline.org. 988 continues to offer support to anyone who needs it, but is no longer offering specialized LGBTQ plus support. If you're looking for specialized LGBTQ plus support, you can contact the Trevor Project directly at 866 488-7386 or text START to 67678 or connect online at trvr.org/get-help for the same free, secure support as always. You can find more crisis resources at the jedfoundation.org/crisis. And the new lifeline for the LGBTQIA plus given by Canada is 1-877-330-6366, or you can call the NAMI helpline at 800-950-6264, or you can text NAMI at 62640, or the find help tool at twloha.com/find-help, or the peer support groups twloha.com/peer support, or the mental health toolkit at mentalhealthtoolkit.com, or you can text the crisis healthline text line. You can text TWLOHA to 741-741. Now, thank you guys for listening. I'll see you next time. Remember, this too shall pass. I love you guys. Enjoy your weekend and stay well. Bye bye.